Thank you. Item 5, presentations, proclamations, and recognitions. Item A, City Treasurer update. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and citizens. My name is Kevin Brown, the City Treasurer. I'm doing my monthly delinquent collection results report. Propel Financial Services refinances our delinquent real estate taxes for our customers. This assistance allows our customers to bring their accounts current and avoid additional penalty and interest on their delinquent accounts. Propel has collected $666,796.79 through November 30th, 2016. That is a reduction of $2,128.72 due to customer default. We will be forwarding this delinquent account to our tax foreclosure attorney, Sands Anderson, to start the tax foreclosure process. If any client defaults on their loan, we will immediately start the tax foreclosure process with Sands Anderson to sell the property. As of November 30th, 2016, tax has collected $1,077,054. As of November 30th, 2016, Propel and tax has collected $1,744,850 in delinquent taxes for the city of Petersburg. Future collection activities. We will continue our collection efforts with Propel, Tax, and Sands Anderson. We have sent a new collection file for real estate 2015, personal property 2016, and the business licenses for 2016 to tax this week. We will publish the new delinquent taxpayer file on the city's website by the end of the month. We will have our next tax foreclosure sale on Friday, January 6, 2017 at 1 p.m. here at the Union Train Station with Sands Anderson. And we will schedule presentations from Propel and Tax. We also will have Sands Anderson. We will schedule them during the next fiscal quarter so that they can speak to you at City Council meetings. As of November 30th, 2016, our delinquent real estate taxes are $2,749,748.58. Our delinquent personal property taxes are $3,303,367.22. These combined figures equal $6,053,115.80. This is a reduction of $1,456,267.82 from the October 31st figures. Tax and Propel will continue to collect and help us lower these numbers and increase the amount of revenues coming into the city of Petersburg. Questions?
Any questions from members of council? Councilwoman Wilson-Smith.
Yes, thank you for the report, for the monthly update. When you say that Propel has collected $667,796.79, is that the total for every month that you give, or is this for since the last month?
Since the last month. Every month I'm going to update you with the total that they've collected so far.
So it's a grand total?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's a difference.
There was a reduction of over $2,000, which was due to a customer that defaulted on their loan.
Due to two customers, so it's more than one customer, just a customer. I saw the reduction, but I didn't see it equaling to $2,128. But that's the reason why you're telling me that there's a difference in the fees. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Next item, item 6, consent agenda. Item A, minutes of the regular city council meeting November 15, 2016, and the work session November 15, 2016. Item B, a request to schedule a public hearing on the proposed disposition of publicly owned property addressed as 835 Commerce Street. Suggested date is January 3rd, 2017. And item C, a request for a public hearing of David B. Allen Incorporated for an amendment to the proffers of a previously approved ordinance 05 Ordinance 50 adopted July 5th, 2005. Suggested date is January 17, 2017.
All right, is there a motion from members of council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to change 9B to become 6C, and 6C to become 6D. The reason for that is 9B and 6B refers to the same piece of property.
Councilman Cole.
With that change, I'd like to accept the consent agenda.
Councilman Hill.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kern.
Aye.
Mayor Meyer.
Aye.
Motion passed. Next item, item 7. Public hearing in accordance with the rules of council. Public comment will be heard before the discussion by council. Once this discussion has started, no further input from the public will be accepted, and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Item A, a public hearing to add section 106-66 to Article 3 of Chapter 106 of the 2000 Code of the City of Petersburg to add as a prerequisite to applying to the Circuit Court for real property tax relief, a review by the Board of Equalization. Mr. McKeithen?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, public in general. This ordinance is merely for the purposes of allowing the city to know what could come up as far as an appeal to the circuit court. This ordinance will help us better be able to budget our resources and our finances. Additionally, this ordinance will allow the Board of Equalization to hear any dispute for property taxes, which is why they're there in the first place. We have an excellent three-member board, and we would like for them to at least hear any appeal case, any challenge before any assessment before it goes to circuit court. So this ordinance does 2 very direct things that will help the city of Petersburg. One, once again, allow us to know what's coming down the pike as far as any assessment change which could affect our budget, and 2, to allow the Board of Equalization to actually hear any case, any appeal case, any challenge, any assessment before it actually winds up in court. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. McKeithen? Oh, sorry. Been a while.
At this time, I'll open the floor for public comments. Seeing no hands, this public hearing is closed.
All right, any questions from members of council for Mr. McKeithen? Or is there a motion? Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that City Council approve the attached ordinance.
Councilman Hill.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Aye.
Councilmember Hart.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson Smith.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kern.
Aye.
Mayor Myers.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
The next item, item 7B, a public hearing on proposed amendments to the City of Petersburg existing charter. Mr. Bland.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
You have before you the work of the Citizens Committee that you all appointed, a member from each ward of the city. And they had, I think it was 4 meetings, maybe 5 meetings. There were public hearings advertised, and they went through the charter provisions and worked on amendments. There was also, the discussion about the possibility of a reversion to town status. That's not before you tonight. And then the question of the method of selection of mayor, which is also not before you. The process for amending a charter, there are 2 ways to go about it. The one that happens more frequently is the adoption of a resolution by the city council after a public hearing, which is required by law. That resolution goes to the General Assembly. That has to be submitted prior to the beginning of the General Assembly, which is the 11th of January. So that would be sort of the 10th, really would be a drop dead date. If the council chose to make amendments for the 2007 to be considered by the 2017 session of the General Assembly, have to do it at the first meeting in January. But understand, of course, that the council has not had an opportunity to review these changes. So the time doesn't work. Nonetheless, there's a public hearing required. It's advertised in the paper. The clerk has done that. And then following that, a resolution is adopted. That goes, and if that legislation goes through the General Assembly, then the charter is amended. The alternative is the council can ask for a referendum, and then you would have a referendum by the citizens. That would be at the November general election. It can be a different time, I think, but it would probably be at the November election. So that's the process. And I will just I'll turn to what I consider the substantive changes that the committee recommended. There were a bunch of sort of cleanup stuff. Any city charter, any town charter parts of it end up being sort of like, my attic, where I got stuff up there that I sort of know it's there, but I don't really know what it does anymore. And it has really outlived its usefulness, but I haven't decided to haul it off yet. Some of that stuff I won't discuss. But going to the changes then, and the charter is there and it's a red line version. The first one, and actually I will note one somewhat minor change, and that is in section 1-4, the penalties for violation of an ordinance. When this was written, the penalty was the same as a class 1 misdemeanor. The maximum cash penalty, financial penalty now under class 1 is $2,500. So it just is it's really a technical amendment to keep it consistent with state law. The first significant change is on the publication of ordinances. The current city charter provides that any ordinance that has a penalty for it, that there's a fine, has to be advertised in the newspaper. Well, as you all know, advertising in the newspaper is expensive, and in today's world, it's only probably a minority of the population gets their information from the newspaper, sad to say, but nonetheless, that's not the way a lot of people get their news. So the requirement to advertise in the newspaper, almost every ordinance that you adopt, is pretty rare. Most cities don't do that. The process typically is that you cannot adopt an ordinance at one meeting. You have to take it up the first meeting, read the title of the ordinance. If you decide to have a public hearing, have a public hearing. You could actually advertise the public hearing on your website, on your bulletin board, and hold a public hearing that way. And then you would not adopt it until a second meeting. It gives a little bit of time for people to think about what the ordinance does. And anyway, that is a very normal process. But then in consideration of the fact that we live in a modern world, the recommendation was to require the clerk to post all of the ordinances and then resolutions that are over 100,000, appropriations of over $100,000, to post them on the city's website, on the front page of the website, so that when you go to the site, you don't have to dig through a bunch of pages to find it, to put it out on social media, and then, you have people who have submitted their emails to get notifications, to send it to those folks who have submitted for emails. And if anybody has any questions as I'm going through this, so obviously feel free. The next section is on Chapter 2, Section 2-4. That's on page 7. First of all, the section on the mayor, without the first major part of it, without any changes to the text, just moved into the chapter that deals with the city council, because the mayor issue is a part of the council. Before, it was in the chapter that dealt with the city manager, city attorney. It just wasn't a good fit. So it's moved to the place that it seemed to the committee was the appropriate place. The next was that, but there is a substantial substantive change, and that is that it says that the council may terminate the appointment of the mayor by a vote of 2/3 of the members elected to council upon the determination the mayor has failed to carry out the responsibilities set out in this section. So that it isn't that a beauty contest that people say, well, we don't like the mayor anymore. It can't be that. It has to be that the section has specific duties for the mayor, presiding, being the city's representative, those things. If the mayor failed to carry out those responsibilities that are set out in that section, then it would require a supermajority vote by the council to remove the mayor. That's the substantive change there, and then of course in that case the vice mayor would take the office to fill the term. And then on section 2-9, this is really just bringing the city charter provision. It has to do with filling vacancies in the office of council. And the language here is really just consistent with the state law on filling vacancies. Those state code provisions were changed fairly significantly a few years ago. And basically the process is, if there is a vacancy, then within 15 days you have to petition for a special election to fill that vacancy. However, the court can only order the special election to be held at the next time that the city council would be having a general election, so that the court can't force you to drag out all the voting equipment in April or something like that. However, if you as council choose to have a special election in April or whatever, you can ask the court for that, and the court can accommodate that. You also though the council has 45 days under state law to fill the vacancy until there is a special election. And the state law provides that if the council fails to agree on an appointee, then the circuit court does the appointment. So this change, all it does is just brings the city's charter process for filling a vacancy into compliance with the state code. A state code that in my experience worked reasonably well. And then section 3-12, which is on page 14, it's the clerk of court to deliver to the commissioner lists of recorded deeds. That's covered by state law. It's really not necessary in the charter, and I always try to avoid having two sections of state code addressing, because this is state code. Your charter is state code. Two sections of state code addressing an issue with slightly different language, because it gets confusing about what the responsibility is. So it's much better. The process works across the state in the state code. 3-13 was one that actually got discussed a fair amount, and this is the powers and duties of treasurer. The charter has provided for some time that the treasurer shall make his or her books open to the council, to a committee, or to a member of council. And that's fair. And so the committee added in the city manager and finance director or equivalent officer as folks who could demand to see the books. Obviously, you want and they do, the treasurer and your finance director and your city manager do work hand in hand. And this just has the charter provision really accommodating that. Section 3-19, I promise not to go through all the stuff that was not, but the current charter says the authority to appoint police officers to issue civil warrants. Well, your civil warrants are issued by the sheriff's office, so that's really was just not needed. 4-5, and this was on page 17. You can imagine this one was sort of entertaining for folks. The authority to prevent vice, immorality, disorderly conduct, and etc. You have that in your charter. Well, those are state code provisions on that. If somebody is doing one of those violations, you know, the principle is for prosecuting people for violations of codes, if there's a possibility of jail time, you want to do it under a state code provision, because then the state is paying for the jail time, not the city. If you charge somebody under a city code provision, then you get to pay the full freight of that jail time. And cities universally do not, and counties, they don't want to pay that. You know, let the state pay it. Not that the state always pays all of it. But anyway, so section 6-1, this is one that I had a couple of questions about, has to do with the amusement tax, and I recommend striking it. And the reason for that is it is not needed. It's Virginia Code section 58.1-3840 fully authorizes the city to impose an admissions tax. This amusement tax that you have here is an admissions tax. It's covered under state law. It's nice and brief. So it's just, and it says it actually more clearly because it just says you may have an admissions tax. It gives you more freedom. So anyway, that's a recommendation there. And those are the changes, members of council. Mr. Mayor, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from members of council? Oh, I know.
At this time, I open the floor for public comments. Christian, first. I seen his name first. I'm sorry. I got you next.